Hello, welcome. Today I'm going to be showing you the results of some more extensive combat testing that I've done. I have tried 8 different infantry divisions, starting with 10 widths, going to 15 widths, 6 and 1s, 20 widths, the old favorite 7 and 2s, 9 and 1s for 21 width, 8 and 2s for 22 width, 9 and 2s for 24 width, 15 and 4s for 42 width, and then also 9 and 3s for 27 width, simply because this is what the AI uses. It's not actually a good division. It doesn't fit into most combat widths well. See 27s here, there's a bit of a spike around it, but it's not as good as 20 to 22 width. I mean, even down here, 24, and then you have 15 width here, which is actually the highest peak along the weighted graph, and this would be weighted for different terrain types, excluding mountains. You have 10 here, which take a bit of a knock because they have overstacking penalties. But either way, this chart is actually relatively inconclusive. There's a lot of peaks that are pretty close to each other, and even the worst divisions are still barely 87.5. So I decided to do a little bit of testing using Germany. What we're seeing here is the losses from invading Poland and then invading France. And we're going to compare them all. I made one small error in the testing of 7 and 2s. I forgot to move up my Air Force. In all of these tests, everyone had 800 CAS, 200 tactical bombers. I'll show all the testings after this if you want to stick around for that. The results are kind of surprising. 7 and 2s lost the least amount of IC. I'm not kidding. It's 7 and 2s. They lost half as much IC as 10 widths did. They lost half as much IC as 15 and 4s did. They're the only division that's under 10,000 IC. The next closest is 6 and 1s for 15 combat width. And no, this is not a bug. The 10 infantry lost 5 to 6 times as much manpower as everyone else. 9 and 3s lost the next most at 21,000. So it seems like we're kind of back to square one from 2-3 years ago, where 7 and 2s are meta in single player. 9 and 1s didn't perform too poorly, but neither did 6 and 1s, the more expensive brother per combat width. 15 and 4s performed as poorly as I expected. They surprisingly did not take many manpower losses, but they had the highest IC losses outside of 10 widths, and by quite a bit. So if you're going to push and you're going to have air, you're probably going to want to go with 9 infantry, 1 artillery. This is the second sheet of the encirclements you can find in the description. This compares the actual cost of the divisions used in this test if you're going to do them from scratch. So I used 192 10 widths. That's going to cost you 115,000 IC. That is on the cheaper end. 6 and 1s, the division that arguably performed the second best, came in at the cheapest cost. And 7 and 2s weren't much more expensive. 9 and 1s actually were slightly cheaper than the 6 and 1s, and they also performed well. And then you have 8 and 2s, 9 and 2s, 9 and 3s, and 15 and 4s. 15 and 4s, 9 and 3s, and 9 and 2s, basically the same cost. And then 8 and 2s are about that midway point. Now, I've not actually seen anybody suggest using 8 and 2s. I just figured, why not test the midpoint between 7 and 2s and 9 and 2s? 22 width tends to fit into combat widths better than either of the other two, so maybe it will perform better. It doesn't actually end up performing better. It doesn't perform particularly poorly. It performs about on par, a little bit better than 9 and 2s, and about on par with a little bit less manpower losses than 9 and 1s. Outperforms 9 and 3s, and outperforms 15 and 4s. So 8 and 2s aren't a horrible idea, but you're better off going with 6 and 1s. But the better option than 6 and 1s is 7 and 2s. Now there's one caveat to remember for all of this. None of these divisions can actually beat 10 widths in combat. So that's the important thing to remember. 10 widths can attack all of these divisions and win, with the exception of 9 infantry, 1 artillery. They can, over time, wear down 10 widths. But otherwise, in single player, 7 and 2s are the new meta. In multiplayer, defending with 15 width or 10 width, if it's allowed, is going to be the meta, because they just can't get pushed. Otherwise, if you're not wanting to use 2 artillery, if you're wanting to cheap out on it, 9 and 1s are the cheaper alternative, and they perform very well. I have used them quite a bit. They perform very well. They can hold against basically any division. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to download this and play around with it yourself, it will be linked in the description below. I'm not going to let you guys edit this directly just because I don't want anybody messing it up, but you can use this part in your own games if you're worried about what you need, what you don't. It's quite simple. Field is what you already have in field. Storage is what you have in storage. Those will add together. That's what your current stockpile is. It'll compare your current stockpile to the amount of equipment you need to build the divisions you want. It'll calculate a deficit for you, or it'll return 0 if the deficit is negative, aka you have a surplus. And then you can set the amount of factories you have available, and it will tell you how many factories you need to put on each one. This does not take into consideration production efficiency. That is a lot more math, and I'm not willing to do that. You can try and do that yourself if you'd like, but I'm not going to do that. Hello, today I'm going to be doing some more extensive testing of different combat with after the No Step Back DLC. I've done a pretty standard opening as German. I went for Rhineland, delayed doing 4-year plans so that I could use the boost for 1939 industry tech, came down here for the research slot, did war economy over integrated war just because it's less focuses, but typically you would want to go for integrated war economies, but this time I went for German war economy just to get it a little bit faster. We are going to finish Fate of Czechoslovakia tomorrow. This marks the approximately 1 year before we are going to declare war on Poland. We are going to see how well each division type fares in an invasion of Poland and then the subsequent invasion of France. So this is the starting point for test 1. Test 1, we are going to be using 10 with infantry with engineer company, support artillery, support anti-air, and support anti-tank. The army is in place. We have 192 divisions that are split into 2 parts. We have 5 under Field Marshal Al Kesselring. He was grounded through the Spanish Civil War. He has Organizer, Infantry Leader, Logistics Wizard because it removes the need to use logistics companies, Aggressive Assaulter for that nice little bit of breakthrough, and Offensive Dock for a little bit more attack. And then we have Sepp Dietrich, also a brilliant strategist, same setup, also grounded through the Spanish Civil War. I would have used Erich von Manstein, but he has not been finished. Otherwise, I've set up the air. I am not going to micro any of this. I'm just going to declare war and click go. So that is Poland capitulated. That was 17 days. We will now be moving on to France. The second we are done Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, we will do around the Maginot, and then we will move on to France. So that is the fall of France. It happened on January 7th, 1940. I'm going to record the equipment and manpower losses, and then I will be back with the test for 15 width infantry divisions. So this is going to be test 2. This is going to be testing 15 widths using 6 infantry, 1 artillery, full support companies. I don't know if I showed this last time, but we are going superior firepower right. We are nearly at the point where we can get mechanized offensive, but it doesn't actually matter because it gives no actual buffs. So instead of that, we are actually going to go get smoke and fire, which gives 5% break. Field marshal wise, we're still using Albert Kesselring, we're still using SEP, and I'm not going to mic. I'm going to declare war on the Polish. Let's see how this goes. So that was faster than the first time around. The first time around took 17 days. This is 15 days, so a little bit faster. So that is the fall of France. France fell on December 26th, 1939. I'm going to record the results of this and then I'll be back with testing 7 and 2s. So this is going to be the test for the 7 and 2s, 20 combat width. This was the meta. This was the meta a long time ago before bigger became better. We're going to see how they work with the new coordination mechanics, making smaller better. Doctrine-wise, same place. Pure firepower right. We have smoke and fire. We're 11 techs through the air doctrine. So let's go. Let's go take out the Polish. Already is September 23rd. That took us 13 days. Not that bad, not that bad. We're going to finish off Molotov Room drop back, and we're going to go for around the Maginot. I should have moved the air a little bit sooner than I did, but it shouldn't matter that much. I'm going to record the results and I'll be back with the next test, 8 and 2s. We are now ready to commence the testing of the 8 and 2s, 8 infantry, 2 artillery, full support companies with superior firepower right, smoke and fire, and 11 air doctrines. Same basic setup as all the rest of the tests. Albert Kesselring has the same traits, and we are ready to go. So Poland capitulated on September 22nd, 1939. That is 14 days. That is one of the fastest of the bunch. We're now going to finish off Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact and go for around the Maginot. So that is the capitulation of France, December 30th, 1939. So I'll record these results and then we'll move on to the next test. So this is going to be the test for 9 infantry, 1 artillery with full support companies, 21 wit. Alrighty, let's go. So there's the capitulation of Poland, September 17th, 17 days. 15 to 17 days seems to be the norm depending on how efficient the battleplan AI is. I'll be recording the losses and then I'll be back with the next test. This is the start of the testing for the larger divisions. We're going to start with the 9 and 2s, then we're going to move to 9 and 3s and 15 and 4s. Because these divisions are larger and coordination is now starting to matter, I've added signal companies to them. The 20% initiative from Signal Company 1 is a 20% multiplier to your... The 20% initiative from Signal Company 1s is a 20% increase to your coordination stats from outside multipliers, so like radio and the radar tech. Doctrine-wise, we're in the same place, so let's declare war. So there goes Poland. Poland is now capitulated. That took 18 days. That is actually the longest of any of them so far. So that is the capitulation of France, December 27th, 1939. Same time period as everyone else. I'll record the results and continue on to the next test. This is the test that's going to be for the 9 and 3s. This is the template 9 infantry, 3 artillery, engineer support artillery, support anti-air, support anti-tank, and signal companies. Let's go. So it's now October 8th, and they finally capitulated. That is 19 days. That is one of the longer ones. Okay, so there is the fall of France. That is December 30th, 1939. It took about 4 days for this event to fire. After the capture of Paris, I do not know why it took so long this time. I'm going to record the results and then I'll come back with the test of 15 and 4s. So this is the final division we are going to be testing today. This is a 15 and 4 with full support companies. I've made one major change with this division. For superior firepower, I've gone left line artillery soft attack plus 5% coordination. That's going to put us at 9% coordination, soon to be 10 as we finish our research for radio detection. On top of that, the 10% soft attack on line artillery is actually more than the amount you'd get from support artillery. Support artillery that give you 12. Here it's going to give you 15.6. So it is more. You are giving up the organization, which I don't like, but this should work better. General wise, we are still using Kesselring. He's still got Logistics Wizard, Aggressive Assaulter, Offensive Doctrine, and this should be more than enough org to beat the Polish. Air Force is set up, basically the same pattern as it has been the entire time. Alright, so it's now October 18th. That is when Poland has capitulated. That is on the slower end of the divisions, but they've all been between 15 and 19 days. It's not that significant. So that is the capitulation of Paris, December 31st, 1939. A little bit slower than some of the others, but I was watching the AI, and the AI refused to walk into Paris, so it would have been faster if they just walked into Paris when they could have. Anyways, thank you for watching this video, and if you see this when it's uploaded, I will probably be streaming on Twitch. I'll be trying to restore the HRE as Victoria in Hearts of Iron 4.